The 2001 ballet musical Raise the Red Laterns, directed by the internationally acclaimed director Zhang Yimou, attracted many eyeballs. While the Chinese media is still discussing whether Western ballet is suitable to deliver a Chinese story, the foreign media has focused on the music of this musical. Music is the soul of a dance drama, and its application in Raise the Red Laterns is certainly proof. It is the music that bridged the gap between the Chinese and Western cultures, made them understand a very traditional Chinese story. The Chinese folk music has a very long history, even longer than the so-called 5,000 years back and forth by the Chinese. In 1986, 9,000-years-old bone flutes were found in the Jihu village of Wuyang County of Henan Province. These bone flutes were made from the wing bones of the cranes. Most of them have 7 holes, which means people back then required accuracy on the decibels of the tones, and the Chinese music back then has reached a certain level. However, before this, the Chinese music must have had a much longer history, which is beyond one's imagination. China is considered a nation of courtesy and music. The early versions of Chinese folk songs were born in the ancient era of hunting and religious activities. Besides the bone flutes, the music instruments in the New Stone Age also include bone whistle, yun, clay bell, and drum. These instruments can be found all over China and existed the span of time. The bell and the drum were greatly developed. Yun and whistle still exist in local regions. During the Yinshang period of the 17th century, the art of music in this slavery society had begun to become professional. On the record, there were already more than 70 kinds of Chinese musical instruments. We can imagine the grandeur of a concert back then, from the grouped bells found in the Sui County of Hebei Province. These Chinese grouped bells are fascinating. They have attracted many Chinese and foreign researchers. One of the reasons is the shape of the bells. All other bells around the world are barrel-shaped. They generate long echo, which is hard to coordinate. The Chinese ones are oval-shaped, also called combined shingles, which is like 2 arched clay shingles combined together. This solved the problems of normal bells, and each bell can even generate 2 tones of sound to be orchestrated with other instruments. Grouped bells are colorful instruments for melodies. They were used to entertain in the palaces, religious ceremonies, and battles. Covered with bronze, the sound of the bells is piercing and amazing. It is the hard work, wisdom, and skillful techniques that created this magic. The instruments with the wind sound delicate and long-lasting. Most of them are made from bamboo or wood, such as yun, shao, flute or sheng, and they are the sound of nature. String instruments sound soft and mellow, such as erhu, pipa, and sangchuan. Every time the fingers pull the strings, they sound and generate like whispers from the heart. The hitting instruments sound enthusiastic and upbeat. In the beats of the drums, people can enjoy their time of happiness. In all the Chinese folk music instruments, bamboo-made ones are the favorite of artists. They look simple and neat, sound clear and elegant. However, the production of these instruments is complicated and difficult. This is jubanchin, one of the hitting instruments. Melody comes from drumsticks hitting the bamboo planks. It looks complicated, but it can be divided into three parts: the sound panels, the woofer barrels, and the bamboo frame. The sound from the sound panels are processed by the woofer barrels to come out in beautiful melodies. The most important part of making jubanchin is the production of the sound panels. There are strict rules to apply. The bamboo must be from the slope of the hills and over 6 years old. They can only be cut in October or November. Only the shade parts of the bamboos can be used. In order to keep the sound quality and not to crack the bamboo, they need to be soaked, boiled, sun-dried, and then smoked for a certain time. Then they need to be filled into the panel shape. The last process is to adjust the tone of the bamboo panels. Different length, thickness can generate different tones. They need to be filed and fine-tuned for many times until they have the correct tones. Although making the woofer barrels are not as strict as the sound panels, they need to be adjusted to the right length and thickness to match the respective panels. The last procedure is the tone tune. Each panel and its woofer generate a certain decibel, so they need to be individually tuned. After all the panel and its woofer are finely tuned, they can finally be put onto the frame. A complete set is ready for play. Duxuanqin, a one-string instrument, is an age-old string instrument, which is popular in Guangxi. Its Chinese name comes from its only single string. In February of 2002, in the Golden Hall of Music of Vienna, Chinese artists played this single-string instrument and touched the whole audience. People were so amazed by the music that generated from only one string. The applause that night was both for the Duxuanqin and Chinese folk music. Chinese folk music instruments have evolved and developed through the years. After years of research and experiment, Chinese folk music instrument professionals have invented a set of ceramic musical instruments. There are more than 10 kinds of instruments in this set, including ceramic bells, ceramic flutes. Traditional Chinese folk music is now coming from a new media. The sound is still clear and amusing. Listening to the Chinese folk music, you'll find an interesting fact. No matter it's the drum and horn music from the Qin Han era, the Qingshang music from the Wei Jin era, or the pipa music from the Sui Tang era, the theme of the music always repeats itself 3 times. And the names of the piece are always San Nong, Tri Nong, or San Di, Tri Di. This is because of the ancient Chinese philosophy of once again, again makes 3, or once to make twice, twice to make triple, and triple to create everything. The Chinese folk music is always connected with weddings, funerals, religious activities, local customs, and palace ceremonies. This is why Chinese folk music is very local and has many kinds of instruments. Royal ceremonial music is grand and serious. Local ones are more free and easygoing. Music has no boundary. It is only because of the diversity of the Chinese folk music that made itself such a long-lasting part of culture.
民间音乐是中国传统音乐的一个重要的一个组成部分，它代表了中国从古到今的整个一个历史沿革的文化发展的一个过程。这个文化发展过程，它也代表了中国整个生产方式变革的一个过程。那么我们现在所了解的、所能听到的很多民间音乐，它代表了一个农耕社会的这样一种文化。
Chinese folk music not only has a long history, but also many culture contents. This is Hanyang of Wuhan, China. There is a famous ancient music stage at the foot of the Gui Mountain and by the Yu Lake. This is where the story of friendship is mountain high and water deep started. "2,500 years ago, there was a famous musician named Yu Boya in the Chunquo era, who was a high-ranking official of the state Jin. He played music at high skills. One day, he brought his assistant along, Han Shui, to the Yangtze River. Under the bright moonlight, he improvised this piece of Gao Shan Liu Shui on his string instrument. A logger named Zhang Yimou, passing by, was attracted to his music and could tell Yu Boya the messages in his music. Thus they became close friends. They promised to meet again next year. However, when Yu returned the next year, Zhang had died. In front of Zhang's tomb, Yu played again Gao Shan Liu Shui. When he finished, he broke his instrument and swore never to play again in his entire life. If Yu could be the best player in that era, then Zhang could be the earliest music critic. Gao Shan Liu Shui is a masterpiece, and its culture content is far beyond music itself. Our humankind had sent out many gifts to outer space. The recorded Chinese language, the image of the Great Wall, and the music piece of Gao Shan Liu Shui are among them. In the 1970s and 80s, the United States of America had sent out 4 times explorers to outer space. On these explorers, there were metal-made discs, including over 100 languages of the word hello. including the Shanghai and Guangdong version. The visual part includes the Great Wall of China and the Grand Canyon of America. The music part includes the Chinese Gao Shan Liu Shui. Many foreign scholars regard this music as the essence of Chinese culture. The decision to choose this music is the hope for humankind to look for friendship in outer space. Chinese folk music with its own distinguished character is attracting more and more followers. The instruments in Chinese folk music that require more than two assistants to play are hard to find. With all the varieties in Chinese musical instruments, there are more emerging. This is probably the smallest flute. With thousands of years of history, Chinese folk music now is stepping onto the world stage. In 2001, the music from the Chinese movie Crouching Tiger and Hidden Dragon won the Best Original Score on the 73rd Oscar Awards. The composer of this movie, Tan Dun, became the first Chinese musician who ever won an Oscar award. The cello player of his music is also a famous Chinese named Yo-Yo Ma. Every successful Chinese musician contributes their creation to the Chinese culture. Their muse is the Chinese folk music. Music has no boundaries. It is an art across the fields. Crouching Tiger and Hidden Dragon has established a bridge in between Eastern and Western cultures, emotion and action, elegance and pop culture. Chinese folk music with its vivid ethnic characters is attracting more and more audience. The Vienna Golden Hall of Music has an annual Spring Festival Chinese music concert. In the Lunar New Year of 1998, it welcomed for the first time China Central Folk Music Troupe. The grandeur and the elegance of Chinese folk music fully express the message of the grand and deep content of the Chinese culture. Music has no boundaries. Exchange, crossover, and even impacts are needed. Moreover, it needs inherent and development. In today's China, the folk music not only kept its original flavor, but also filled with fresh hopes.